You call this a bad neighborhood? Hey folks, it's Jerry with Russian Reality, and today we're going to cover some of the myths and misperceptions that people might have about Russia and try to put some of those to rest. So, let's get started. Number 1, bears walk the streets of Russian cities and towns. Absolutely false. This one's kind of funny actually, but I've been here 12 years. Never seen any bears except at the zoo or at the circus. Oddly enough, Russia Beyond the Headlines, RBTH, a few years back did an article about when people actually did have bears out in the streets and where this myth or trope comes from. But categorically, this is false. Number 2, Russian women are spies or gold diggers and Russian men are gangsters. This isn't really a myth as much as just a trope and a stereotype that's just been created over decades and decades. I mean, when I was a kid, we had Rocky and Bullwinkle and Boris and Natasha. And then as time went on, we got, people like Salt and Black Widow and... we've done tons of movies in the West that portray Russians as gangsters and such. And, this just isn't real reality, but it does feed a stereotype, making, the Russian accent intimidating, like I alluded to in the intro, with comedians and talking about it.
I'll be walking home late at night. Two dangerous looking thugs walk up to me like, "Yo, man, you know what neighborhood you're in? You think this bad neighborhood?"
So I find it really interesting, but this just really isn't accurate. And often the West, we just get it wrong. Good example is Keanu Reeves does not look anything like Baba Yaga, as illustrated here. So yeah, this is just a trope, and I'd really advise people to kind of stay away from it. But on a side note, interestingly enough, my completely normal Russian wife is really, really good with an AR-15 and a handgun. I took her shooting in the U.S., and she kind of knocked my socks off with her skills. So maybe there is something to this. Number 3, Russians drink a lot, especially vodka. Quick answer is actually no, but also yes. So couple things to note about this is if we look at total alcohol consumption per capita and total volume, according to the CIA fact book, which they posted this about 5 years ago, and they haven't updated it since that I've seen, Russia actually comes in at a number 56 worldwide in alcohol consumption per capita. At just over like 7 liters per person per capita per year. And so, oddly enough, the U.S. comes in at 35, and some former Soviet republics like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they're all in the top 10, but Russia is out 56. Now, that being said, Russians do consume more vodka, both in total volume and per capita, than any other country in the world. And it's kind of like their cultural alcohol. So this isn't really surprising. If you look at the Insider Monkey data from last year, it shows that Russians consume about 17 shots of vodka a month per capita, which is quite a bit. But overall, they're not the drunks that you might think they are. Do Russians enjoy partying? Absolutely. In fact, here's another quick fact for you. Russia consumes the 5th most wine in the world in total volume. And you'll find this if you go to a Russian liquor store. You'll see a massive wine selection. So Russians do like wine. And we get wine from Russia itself, and also from many different countries. So wine very popular, but Russians also like cognac and whiskey. My uncle Yura, big fan of Jim Beam. So there you have it. Number 4, Russians are communists. Totally false. And again, we'll make this a quick one. Russia's had a free market economy since the 1990s. And Communist Party represents a tiny fraction of the total electorate. That being said, my babushka still swears that life was better under the Soviet Union. Number 5, it's always cold in Russia. This is false. In fact, many of the areas of Russia, especially in the south, get extremely warm in the summers. If you check out other YouTubers, you'll see some of them live in the south, and most areas of Russia we have a 4-season year. It's pretty normal. There are some regions that are in the far north that get ridiculously cold in the winter and have very short summers, like Murmansk. As I pictured here, you can see where Murmansk is in relation to St. Petersburg and Moscow. But, as for St. Petersburg, where I live, we have 4 seasons, and our winters have less sunlight because of our latitude. So, we only get about 5 or 6 hours of sunlight in the winter, but in the summer we get the white nights, which is spectacular. We get this white glow above the city even when the sun goes down, and making for extremely long days, and that's really nice. So yeah, the weather in Russia is no different than I experienced, living in northern U.S. climates like Michigan or Wisconsin or, northern Pennsylvania. However, Russians still joke about the weather, just like we do in the United States. I was in Murmansk earlier this year, and that's pretty far north, and a local told me a joke they tell there, and 2 workers are talking, and one says to the other, "Oh, I can't wait for summer this year," and the other guy replies, "Oh yeah, I hope it lands on a weekend this time." So there you have it. Number 6, there's no free speech in Russia. This is just not accurate at all. False. There are some limitations on what you can say. Most of these things revolve around the special military operation, but there's plenty of dissenting voices on radio and television. People are critical of government policies on a number of things, pensions and healthcare and education and the budget and so on and so forth. No different than you'd find in the United States, just a little bit different in the way that the people respond to it. And there's less activism here, so you don't see as many rallies and such, and I don't think that's indicative of the government as much as it's indicative of just the culture and the people. I've never been in a room where we're talking about politics, and we talk about politics all the time, where someone said, "Oh, we need to keep it down so that the security services don't hear." That just doesn't happen. It's just not accurate. People speak their mind, and now, if I had one thing to say about Russians in general, it's that politically, when it comes to voting and for getting out the vote and supporting certain things, they're pretty apathetic, and there's a reason for that, and that is that most Russians have seen their livelihoods and their quality of life increase over the last 20 some years. And much like, my family and friends in the U.S. Who vote with their wallets, if things are going good, they like to keep it as it is. And when things are going like crap, then, they want to see some changes. So, So that's my take on it. Again, you have different views. Please throw them in the comments. But in general, I think that's how it pretty much is here, at least in my experience. Number 7, you can't find anything at the grocery stores because the shelves are empty. This is an old trope. It goes all the way back to the Soviet time. It was the lines for toilet paper and all those things. And while those things might have existed in Soviet times, it's just not the case anymore here. Even with sanctions, we haven't seen a big interruption of consumer goods in general. And just about every YouTuber and travel blogger has covered this. Even Tucker Carlson did. They visited a grocery store, and I went ahead and did the obligatory video of my local market. It's not a big grocery store; it's just a local market right across the street from my apartment, and you can kind of see. There's plenty of stuff on the shelves. The fact of the matter is that. There's 200 million people roughly in Russia. Not sure what the official number is, but that's quite a lot of consumers. And the fact is that the U.S. and the EU just don't really make much of anything in way of consumer goods anymore. All that stuff's been outsourced and offshored to other countries, and those countries more than willing to do business and sell their products to a big market like there is in Russia. So this just really is not an issue. And the other thing, when it comes to food, one of the, how about food? They're going to starve. Russia's a net exporter of food, both in terms of value and in tonnage. So, that's just not, that's not going to happen. It's a self-sufficient country. Certainly Russians like their bananas and their imported foods, and if you haven't tuned into The Real Reporter, Konstantin runs an excellent channel, and he just recently did a video about this, and I really enjoyed it because he talked about food inflation. And yes, over the last 2 years, we have definitely seen an increase in prices in food in Russia, but so has everybody else in the world just about. One thing that he also points out, which I'm very thankful for, because we've been talking about this in the economist circles, so to speak, for quite a while, and that is that wages in Russia have outpaced the inflation for consumer goods, and so this really isn't an issue, and people talk about it a lot, but. Clearly I'm well fed. We're not going to starve to death in Russia, and there's plenty to eat. Number 8, Russia is dangerous. This hasn't been my experience at all. I've been here a long time. I've visited all over the country. Been all the way to Vladivostok and just a ton of cities in between. The Urals, Rostov-na-Donu, up north, Moscow. This has not been my experience, and it's not like I've been completely isolated from different cities and different environs while I was here. So I just never had that experience. I don't. I've never felt like I was walking into an area or a neighborhood or a situation where I didn't feel safe. Or that danger was imminent at any point in time. I mean, certainly nothing like my visits to San Ysidro, California, or south side of Chicago, or even worse, Philadelphia Eagles game at the old Vet Stadium. Those were far more dangerous places than any place I've experienced in Russia. Are there places? I'm sure they are. Not the kind of places that I frequent, though. And there are issues in Russia with with drug use and such. But these are social problems that I don't think of totally affected society or anything along those lines. And and they're really kind of hard to find. So that's my experience. I'd really be interested from other YouTubers who are spread throughout Russia to kind of share their comments on this and what kind of experiences they've had, because I've had a few things. I made an illegal left turn one time and got pulled over by the police officers. They took my license, ran my stuff, gave me a ticket, and I was on my way. It was a little bit difficult at first because of my American license and all the documents and everything. And of course, they didn't speak English, and my Russian sucks. And so, so that was kind of a challenge. But no issues. I had another problem with a visa extension issue when I was studying at the European University many years ago, and I thought my visa had been extended by the university, and I was given every indication that was the case, and then it turned out that my visa wasn't. I had overstayed my visa, so I went to the court, explained the situation, showed, hey, I've been in and out of the country many times. I screwed up, didn't realize that my visa expired. My university apologized for the confusion. Judge said, no problem, go to Estonia, get a new visa, come back. And that was it. So very rational. Nothing that I've ever really been in fear of. There's nothing that stands out. So maybe I could hear from some people who have had some situations or whatnot, but all my experiences with police officers have been pretty pleasant. Giving me directions when I need to find places, and just generally being pretty good guys. So yeah, that's my experience. So moving on. Number 9, Russians aren't friendly. This is patently false, and if you've watched any expat YouTubers in Russia, you'll notice that people are extremely friendly, and they're lovely people. They're warm and certainly friendly. The thing is that you have to get to know them. They don't share their personal thoughts, fears, and emotions with people that they barely know, and this is probably the way it should be, to be honest with you. We're a little bit over the top with information in the U.S. in general. We talk about things that we're not probably shouldn't be talking with total strangers. But give you a great example. And this happened several years ago. My wife and I were on vacation in the United States, and we're at a jewelry store. And we were getting our rings cleaned and looking at some other stuff. And the sales lady, sweet lady, just was so nice and was following my wife around and chit-chatting her and talking about our vacation and family and what it was like in Russia, and again, to the sales lady, she was just being very personal, very helpful. And for my wife, she's scaring the shit out of me. Why does she keep bothering me like this? She was kind of put off by it, and it's not because anyone was doing anything wrong. It's just this is just a cultural thing. But people here, wonderful, warm, friendly, helpful, and even if they don't know you very well, if they want to practice their English and you're a native speaker, they'll probably chat you up. But this just not 100% accurate. And people are people the world over, and most of them are friendly, no matter what country I've been to. And that's the case just about everywhere. Number 10. Russians aren't very aware of the rest of the world, and they're not very well educated. This is absolutely false, totally inaccurate, and this isn't really a stereotype as much as just a feeling that I get when I discuss different topics with Westerners in regards to Russia. It seems like too many of them are picturing Russians as the cosmonaut in the movie Armageddon, and as some bungling fools. And, it's just not accurate. Russians are not only very aware of what goes on in the world, but they're more apt to speak English than Americans are to speak Russian. They trade with countries from all over the world, just like the U.S. does. They're very aware. And as far as education goes and competency levels, they have a good education system. Now, if you ask a Russian, they'll tell you, oh, well, our education sucks. We need to focus on this. It's every country in the world. Hey, listen, the bottom line, when education is concerned, moms are going to mom. No matter where you go, parents are always, stressing, education for their kids, and Russia's no different. And so there's complaints and there's room for improvement, but overall the system is good. Fun fact for you: at no point since the United States was established has it had higher literacy than Russia. Never. No matter how much money we've spent on education, which, by the way, we spend more per student than any other country in the world, in the U.S., we still have higher illiteracy. Illiteracy is almost non-existent in Russia. In fact, the only countries that have higher literacy than Russia are the Scandinavian countries. And when I explain this to my Russian friends who complain about the education system here, I tell them, well, you have people who can't read and write in the United States. And they look at me like I'm telling them that the moon is made of cheese or something, because to them, it's absolutely impossible. How can you have these beautiful, crystal cathedrals of education that we've built for in elementary schools and high schools and universities in the U.S. and still not have, highly educated, fully literate society? And that's because education is more than just money, and it's more than just facilities. Part of it's culture and parent involvement and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things to it. But what I would say is that the system in Russia, and a lot of it's based on what the Soviets started, has done a really good job of preparing its citizens to be competent in the industries that are necessary. And it shows. The hardest things to do in this world revolve around things like nuclear energy, aeronautics, putting rockets into the upper atmosphere or making planes fly at supersonic speeds. And the Russians are great at this. When we look at technology, Russian IT engineers and developers are excellent. They're sought after by countries all over the world, constantly seeking out Russian professionals in this industry. And there's a reason for this. When it comes to medicine, great medicine developments in the country as well. So this idea that somehow they're backwards I'd say it's just misplaced arrogance on the part of many people in the West, and so it's somewhat irritating to me. But I hope this kind of puts it in perspective. I plan to do a whole video in the future on the education system in Russia, and what it's like in the shkoly and at the university level, and how people advance. And so we'll get to that sometime here in the near future. But for now, hey, Russians are very aware of what's going on in the world, and they're very competent. So there you have it. All right, so that's what I got for you for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope this clears some things up. Maybe some of these things you already knew, maybe you didn't. But hope you enjoyed it and had fun. And if you didn't, you leave a comment. And if you did like it, leave a comment too. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We do appreciate it. Shout out to Real Reporter, who I referenced in this video. I'll try to do this for other YouTubers, at least one per video. But if you haven't checked out Real Reporter, Constantine's YouTube page, please do so also, because it's great stuff. And certainly he's much better at this than I am. But have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next one.